Perfect. All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Ed Lewis. I'm the Command Master Chief for Force Readiness Command, here for a spouse town hall for Force Readiness Command, and we have a grouping of Command Master Chiefs and Senior Chiefs on as well. From what I'm seeing, they're ranging from like Petaluma, San Diego, and I think Gabe has us all beat in Ketchikan. So we got a pretty good grouping, along with the Master Chief of the Coast Guard and representatives out of Training Center, Petaluma, California. I'm expecting a few more to come on. We have 4 speakers tonight. Chris Rick from Department of Labor Vets is going to give a rundown of the things he's working on and perhaps what we can do to support our spouses from Department of Labor. Ms. Lisa Lutz from Solutions for Information Design, my good friend, is going to talk about some data and kind of the why and what we're trying to do to support spouses and what Solid has done in the past to both for active duty, reserves, and spouses. It's a tremendous amount of work in the credentialing and education world. Ms. Liz Belcaster, absolutely fascinating person, talking about concrete programs that she's helped stand up and the sheer number of people that she's helped get employment with what we call a good family wage, significant amount of money so you don't have to have dual incomes or starving folks. And then we'll wrap with Miss Kandi Tillman from 50 Strong, who I see just joined us early, which is outstanding. Kandi, great to see you on again. So much appreciate everybody's time and hopping on. And I don't want to belabor this. I'll let the guests introduce themselves as they roll through their parts, and then we'll move on to questions when that's over. So kick it off. Chris, the floor is yours, my friend. Mute.
Sorry, forgot to unmute myself. Thanks, team. Great to be here, and thanks, Ed, for inviting us to be a part of this important discussion on military spouse employment for the Coast Guard. So I'm Chris Rick. I work with the U.S. Department of Labor Veteran Employment and Training Services. I am an Army veteran of 30 years, recently retired, but I spent my last 3 years on active duty serving as the senior fellow with the U.S. Department of Labor on behalf of the entirety of DOD and U.S. Coast Guard in the really transitioning service member and military spouse employment space. So really want to talk to you guys today about what the Department of Labor Vets is doing to support our military spouses for employment and transitioning employment, as they move from one installation to another. So I want to make sure that you guys can see that the screen that's up in front of you should be Teams. All right, I got a thumbs up there. Thanks, Ed. So the first thing I want to talk about is the U.S. Department of Labor delivers transition education to service members, right? And what we realized about 2.5, 3 years ago was our spouses can come to that, but the take rate on that is way less than 1%. So we really wanted to focus in on what do our military spouses need as they transition not only out of service with their service member, but from one duty station to another, and provide that information in a way that can be easily digested for them, facilitated by an employment specialist, and accessible OCONUS around the world 24/7, both virtual and in person when requested. Our folks will come there and facilitate that either on installation or at a community center or a partner organization that's in the community. So really Teams looks at a lot of different areas, but what I want to point you to, and you don't have to kind of like screenshot all this because there's a resource guide that's going to come at the end of this, is what this really provides for you. So we realize that military spouses move 10 times more than non-military spouses, right? So your next move really focuses in on what you need to do and how to prepare for and take advantage of the resources available to transition employment from one duty station to another. This is one of the several courses that are available to the team here that they can sign up for. Career credential focuses in on what credentials are, why they are important in the workplace, and then how, after you attain them, to transition them from one duty station to another. So it's a really good class that really, dives into at this point in time, really the new currency in the workforce, credentials. And I know some of the other speakers that are coming after me are going to really dive into that and educate you on why credentials are so important. We absolutely understand that military spouses' resumes are very different. We put a lot of emphasis in this. That's why it's not a 2-hour course. It's a 4.5-hour course. But to really help you understand how to negotiate the gaps in your resume, the volunteer time, the education time, the different tracks that you have that are different from your non-military spouse counterparts, and how to really highlight those in your resume as a value add and sell your story to an employer out there. And then that rolls right into the marketing me, developing your brand, understanding, the best way that employers can receive you as a military spouse and get into the workforce. We are working closely with the White House and OPM on the federal hiring space as the hiring space of choice for our military spouses. And that's really why we put this federal hiring program in there, to explain to our spouses how to operationalize the non-competitive orders that have come out in the last couple of administrations, the new OPM federal kind of military spouse hiring playbook, and how that applies to you and how to best utilize those pathways, understanding that federal hiring is not the easiest thing on the planet. And then we get into a lot of kind of elective, if you think about them this way. So LinkedIn, for those that are on LinkedIn and have been on there for a while, they understand it. But for those that aren't, it's kind of a new and challenging space. So we have 2 different LinkedIn blocks of instruction we offer. One is on developing profiles. The other is on how to use LinkedIn as a job search tool and how best to operationalize that. And then we go into the interviewing skills, how to go into the employer and really sell yourself and your brand. And that is closely tied to our salary negotiation block of instruction that really uses the information that the Department of Labor posts on median income or median salary based on occupation by geographic location to help you understand where your starting area is. So you're not underselling yourself, but you can adequately negotiate your salary going into those, those engagements with employers out there. And then the last one, which is really exciting, is, if there's anything that came out of the pandemic, it was that we can have a fair degree of our workforce work remote based on occupation and function, right? So really focusing our military spouses on these flexible job opportunities that are remote in many cases, that are transferable, which is highly, highly beneficial to the military spouse, so that when you transition with your service member, you're not worried about finding a new job. You just take it with you. We have many, many employers that are on board with this. We have the National Labor Exchange that's really looking hard at this and has helped us in a lot of ways. So just want to put that out there for the team. The next thing I want to throw out for you all is our employment resources and how we lay those out for our military spouses on the DOL.gov vets page. So our career opportunities is really a tool that Department of Labor Employment and Training Administration uses and kind of helps our spouses understand, what is beneficial to them. And then, Department of Defense houses this SECO, the Spouse Education and Career Opportunities Program, under their umbrella and provides one-on-one assistance to our military spouses. Now, I understand some of our spouses are reluctant to use this because it is I have to register with an email address and the whole 9 yards. But I will tell you, it's definitely worthwhile because the reason that that closed ecosystem exists is to eliminate as best we can predatory practices associated with military spouse employment. So that's why DoD kind of went after this scope, this approach for that program. Great program that's out there in the space, and definitely worthwhile looking at. I touched on the federal military hiring for spouses. Our TEAMS program kind of walks you through that pathway. And then this, National Labor Exchange virtual jobs, what they have done is carved out not only jobs for employers that are highlighting opportunities for spouses, but also those opportunities that exist in the remote or virtual space. And then, of course, under SECO is the Military Spouse Employment Partnership under the One Source for Military. Those are employers who have committed to hiring military spouses and have great programs to bring them on board and then maintain their employment as they move from one space to another. Our Hiring Heroes partner have great programs, the Military Spouse Fellowship Program, and some new and emerging opportunities that are in conjunction with DoD for paid fellowships. Really recommend that our military spouses look at that area, because that is a great opportunity that was authorized under the last NDAA that gives funding associated with that. And then Blue Star Families, IBMF, USO Pathfinders, all great partners in this space that can provide opportunities for you. Our Career One Stop does have a military spouse page associated with it, but I will tell you the best thing about the Career One Stop tool is the license finder tool associated with it. So our spouses that are in a licensed occupation that have to move from one state to another can use this tool to access all of the state's occupational licensure boards and really understand what the requirements are moving from one state to another. So the next thing I want to kind of talk to you all about is the Employment Navigator and Partnership Pilot. So historically, Department of Labor has provided transition assistance to our service members through a kind of classroom, didactic kind of engagement. So the Navigator program is a move past that. So we still provide, all the blocks of instruction for all the transitioning service members, which spouses can come to. But this is a move past that to provide a in-person, one-on-one kind of kneecap to kneecap employment transition professional that services not only the transitioning service member, but the military spouse. And that military spouse can not only be while they're transitioning off of active duty, but from one duty location to another. So this is really a step above, in my opinion, what historically DOL VETs has provided. We've seen great outcomes with this. It's a pilot right now. It's only at 28 and soon to be 32 installations, to include the first Coast Guard installation, Kodiak, that will come online shortly as we expand into Alaska. And I highly recommend that other Coast Guard installations come up on the net and request through your transition assistance coordinator at U.S. Coast Guard level to Department of Labor vets. We definitely have resources to expand this to other Coast Guard installations. We're super excited about Kodiak, but we understand that there's a lot of other opportunity in this space. And what this provides for not only the transitioning service member and spouse is a individualized kind of concierge employment navigation experience with our partners. And we have several of them with a lot of functions that can help facilitate a good employment transition for the service member and the military spouse so they meet their full potential in the workplace. And then the last thing I'll leave you with here is the U.S. Department of Labor really resource guide. So we have everything in this guide from, one, how to use it up front, and then two, getting into the table of contents. There's everything in here from military spouse employment to transitioning service member employment to FMLA application to spouses for service members that are deployed, to how the workforce system supports military spouses in a dislocated worker status. And I mean, it's just a wealth of knowledge that the team is sending out with this recorded, session that we're having here. And if you have any questions, that QR code on the top will take you to us, and we will be able to provide you one-on-one, assistance as you and your service member are seeking employment post-service. Our goal at the U.S. Department of Labor and Vets is to ensure that all of our transitioning service members, military spouses, and veterans reach their full potential in the workplace, and we stand ready to support the Coast Guard in that effort. So, Ed, with that, I think I'll hand it back over to you for our next speaker, and stand by for any questions in the chat.
Outstanding, my friend. Yeah, I'm actually texting Heath on the side, McPod, about setting a meeting up with you in DC, and I'm excited to see where the next three speakers go with that same mindset and how we actually step into this space deliberately and grow. So thanks, Chris. I understand you may have to step out. If you do, we'll catch you offline. But if you want to stay online, by all means, love to have your thoughts. Next up is Miss Lisa Lutz, great friend of mine, Solutions for Information Design. Incredible work, Lisa. If you would just kick it off.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Ed. As Ed said, I'm Lisa Lutz, President and CEO of Solid. I have had the good fortune of knowing Ed Lewis for many years and have enjoyed lots of opportunities on strategizing with him on how we promote the growth, the career growth for service members, veterans, and military spouses. I appreciate the opportunity to talk. I appreciate the introduction to Lindsey, and that, Lindsey, you pulled this all off. It's wonderful. I'm going to move right into it. Let me get to my, let's see, there we go. You're seeing my slides, Ed?
Yeah, we got you.
Cool. Awesome. All right. So the things that I wanted to cover today, I'm going to tell you a little bit about who Solid is, what we do, so you'll have a little bit of context as to why I'm part of this discussion. I'm going to talk about workforce trends and briefly introduce 4 important workforce trends that I think are particularly impactful for military spouses, service members, and veterans. Before I delve into each of the 4 trends in depth, I want to tell you too about the 3 DoD workforce programs that Solid supports. Some of these programs are focused primarily on service members and veterans, but all of them have a spouse component as well. And having a good portion of the Solid staff who are military spouses, I know very well that spouses play an important role in helping their service member partners make career choices of their own. I'm going to try to go relatively quickly through the information for 2 reasons. One is we did this on the East Coast, and I think I got a little bit long-winded yesterday. And 2 is I am on the East Coast, and it's 9:20, and it's getting past my bedtime. So who is Solid? Solid's a woman-owned small business. We're located in Northern Virginia. We have been in business since 2003, so this is our 20th year. We provide a variety of workforce development consulting services with a heavy emphasis on military-connected individuals. We specialize in translating military training and experience to civilian jobs and civilian credentials, and in developing career path tools to help anybody prepare for and attain high-quality jobs. Had the good fortune of working in this space with the Department of Defense since our inception. All of the military services, many federal agencies, as well as some private sector partners as well. This slide gives you just a little bit of context about why this discussion is so important. You'll see here that the statistics show that it's much harder for military spouses to deal with they face a lot more difficulty in terms of unemployment compared to the general population. Spouse unemployment for the past decade has been high. It was at 22% in 2022 compared to the general unemployment rate of just under 4%. So spouse unemployment was more than 5 times that of the general population. And military spouses also experience much longer periods of unemployment. It's 3 times higher than their civilian counterparts. That's huge, and it suggests that there's a problem that needs to be addressed. And I'm hoping that this conversation and hopefully others that will ensue beyond this are going to help with that. So workforce trends. These are the 4 workforce trends that have grown in popularity throughout the economy in recent years. And I think they're helpful to consider as you're looking at how to qualify for positions, demonstrate your qualifications, and find a job that can fit with the lifestyle of a military spouse who is frequently on the move. I'm going to touch a little bit more on each 4 in a moment, but I'd like to pause for a moment and talk a little bit about the 3 key workforce programs at DoD that we support. These are resources that will be linking to the various workforce trends, so you can see how these resources might help you take advantage of the current workforce trends to situate yourself from a career growth and employment standpoint. I don't have the time to go through all of these programs in a lot of detail, but the slide deck that I'm going through will be distributed after the webinar, and I have links to all of the resources, as well as a few backup slides that I'm not going to go through with a little bit more detail. So I want to start with COOL, Credentialing Opportunities Online. COOL has been around since 2003 when it started as an Army program, and it has grown over the years to encompass all of the services, including the Coast Guard. The COOL websites are service-specific websites under the umbrella of DoD COOL. They're resources where you can look up a particular military occupation in any of the services and find out about related civilian jobs and non-academic credentials, including certifications, licenses, and apprenticeships, which we'll touch on a little bit more in a few. As we'll discuss, these are important indicators of qualifications for employers as they rely more heavily on non-academic credentials. COOL also provides detailed information on the credential eligibility requirements, resources that are available to help you prepare to attain the credential. And for service members, it'll tell you if the service will pay for attainment of the credentials. In recognition of the importance of non-academic credentials, particularly to military-connected individuals, Congress has actually mandated that the services pay for these non-academic credential programs. So there's some good resources out there. For non-service members, COOL has quite a bit of general information on credentials and what you might consider in terms of pursuing them, as well as resources that might be available to you as well. The second program I wanted to highlight that we support at DoD is the MilGears. MilGears is actually powered by COOL, but it takes COOL to another level. I like to call it the COOL on steroids. And I have to pause because I would be totally remiss if I didn't mention here that one of our hosts tonight, Master Chief Ed Lewis, is actually one of the 2 masterminds behind the MilGears concept. You put a Master Chief from the Coast Guard and a Master Chief from the Navy together at a conference with a cocktail napkin, and they come up with some really great ideas. So, while COOL maps credentials to specific military occupations, MilGears takes into account the variety of formal and informal learning that you've gained throughout your careers, to include training and experience and academic and non-academic credentials that you might have attained. It's really a complete picture of your qualifications. It's not just what you can do because of your military occupation. For service members and veterans, it allows them to upload formal documentation of their military training and experience to include the Joint Service Transcript, service-specific records, or the VMET, the Verification of Military Education and Training. It parses all of that information and shows career pathways that might be available to you, as well as civilian jobs that you might qualify for. For military spouses, MilGears also has a TurboTax type interface where you basically answer a series of questions that tease out your qualifications and produce similar career pathways and job opportunities. The third program I wanted to focus on is SkillBridge, which some of you probably have heard of. SkillBridge is a program mandated by Congress to help service members transitioning out of the military gain valuable industry-specific training prior to separation. Service members within 6 months of transition are eligible to participate in industry-sponsored internships, pre-apprenticeships, and on-the-job training programs. They participate while they're receiving their military salary and benefits. And the civilian industry or employer partner is approved by DoD. They must meet certain criteria, and they must provide a reasonable expectation of post-service employment. So in a nutshell, those are the 3 programs that we support, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about each one of them in the context of the workforce trends that I outlined earlier. So the first workforce trend is recognition of non-degree credentials. What we have seen in recent years, in the past 5 to 10 years particularly, is that employers are increasingly relying on non-degree credentials as a means of assessing qualifications. They have found that they can't rely on a degree alone to determine whether somebody's going to have the competency to perform in the job. So they're relying on certifications, which are voluntary credentials that can range across all occupational areas, from IT to healthcare, where they're most prevalent, but also to electronic areas, maintenance, project management. They really cover the gamut. Licenses are a little bit like certifications in terms of the eligibility requirements, but licenses are mandated. In other words, the government requires that in order for you to participate, or in order for you to be employed in a specific occupation, you have to hold a license and meet certain requirements. And the other trend with regard to non-degree credentials is apprenticeship completion. Non-degree credentials are important and valuable to military-connected individuals because they may be easier to attain and they may take less time than an academic credential. I've outlined here a few of the resources, including COOL and MilGears, which we've already talked about. I also wanted to highlight the My Career Advancement Account, which is a DoD program that allows for expenses up to $4,000 in financial assistance for eligible military spouses to pursue these types of credentials. Chris mentioned the fact that there are a lot of intricacies for military spouses as it relates to state licensure. State licensure requirements can vary tremendously from state to state. But there's been a lot of interest in finding ways to help military spouses navigate their transfer from one duty station to another. And there are legislative things or regulatory programs that are out there that help ensure that military spouses can get recognition of their licenses from another state. The resource I've listed here has a lot of good information, state-by-state information about that. This just talks a little bit about the benefits of certificates and certifications to veterans. There was a recent study by Gallup and Strata, I believe it was funded by the Lumina Foundation, that really looked deeply into how veterans have been able to utilize certificates and certifications. And it really shows that they tend to disproportionately hold certificates and certifications. And I think one reason for that is the programs that have been required by Congress and that have been supported by the DoD. They basically recognizing that a civilian certification in the hands of a transitioning service member helps to show the civilian employer that the skills are on par with the civilian counterparts. The second trend I wanted to highlight is skills-based hiring. There's a lot of emphasis nowadays on what skills an individual has versus what degrees they're bringing to the table. And they're looking for demonstrated qualifications that demonstrated experience and learning that demonstrates the skills that the individual will bring. What that means then is that the job applicant has to better articulate skills in their resume. And MilGears has really gone a long way towards helping folks do that. MilGears identifies soft and technical skills that have been gleaned from military training and experience, and it puts them in civilian terminology. It actually will produce a resume and a learning and employment record that outlines those skills in a way that it's going to resonate with a civilian employer. For military spouses, it will do the same thing, and not so much translating military to civilian, but it will take the skills that they've gained through various career opportunities and produce the same kinds of information. One of the trends that's related to skill-based hiring is basically a digital badge or a digital verifiable credential that testifies to the fact that you actually hold those skills. Within MilGears, we're working towards connecting to the personnel systems that would provide that kind of a verifiable credential. The other program is the DoD SkillBridge program. The DoD requires that the employer partners indicate the skills that would be acquired in the training plans that they have to submit to DoD and have approved before they can be granted participation in the SkillBridge program. So a service member seeking a SkillBridge opportunity can see clearly what skills they might gain by participating in that. And it's usually not in terms of necessarily gaining the skills, but validating the skills that they've already attained through the military. Chris Rick spoke about remote work as well, and the fact that this is a huge trend, obviously, after the COVID-19 pandemic. I like to brag about the fact that when Solid started in 2003, we chose very deliberately to be a remote workplace environment. And so we have operated remotely for almost 20 years now. But we're seeing that the rest of the workforce is starting to embrace this as well and learn that this is really a viable way for their workers to have a nice work-life balance. And Chris mentioned this resource as well. The National Labor Exchange has a search functionality where you can find jobs that are offered remotely and virtually. We're working towards incorporating that same information into MilGears. A lot of the information that we include in MilGears is done in collaboration with Department of Labor. They've got a lot of good resources that they make publicly available and that we can put within the context of the MilGears application. And finally, the fourth trend I wanted to talk about is work-based learning, which we've somewhat talked about. But work-based learning provides structured opportunities for skills development within a workplace setting. This has become more prominent as a form of workplace preparation, and more employers are offering these opportunities. Apprenticeship is a great example of a work-based learning opportunity, but there are other types of work-based learning that aren't quite as formal as the registered apprenticeship programs that are also highly valuable and accessible. And I've highlighted here a few of the programs that support that. SkillBridge, which I just talked about, DOL's Apprenticeship USA, which I believe Chris mentioned too. You can get some really good filtering on apprenticeship opportunities that might be relevant to your interests and your geographic location. And then the U.S. Chamber Hiring Our Heroes program. We've actually hired several people through that program, and it's been fantastic. In fact, our HR director is a military spouse, and we hired him through the Hiring Our Heroes program, so he's a huge proponent of that. So in the interest of being relatively brief, I think I might have cut it back a little bit. Here is my contact information. I'm more than happy to talk to anybody who would like to have additional information. And if I don't know the answer, I can try to help you find it. So thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate it.
Excellent. Thank you, my friend. And yeah, I've got a few comments on the side, but we'll move to Miss Liz Belcaster. I think we're sitting about 21 minutes from when I would like to wrap and move to questions. So Liz, and you'll be followed by Kandi. But Liz, please introduce yourself and let us know what you do for us.
Sure.
Thank you.
And thanks, Ed. I'm going to reiterate what Lisa said. Lindsay, sometimes it just takes one person walking through the door to make sure that, you know, some of these issues are addressed. And as we know, even with industry, military, all aspects of, you know, of folks that are engaged with veterans and military families, it really does take, it's a team effort, and greatly appreciate the fact that you were addressing the need for military spouses amid the Coast Guard. And I really want to be very focused on that. Since our first call last night, I think a lot of the conversations, even today through some of my meetings, is really understanding what the needs are of the military spouses. I'm Liz Belcaster. I've been working in the space as a consultant of training to placement with military since 2008. When the unemployment numbers for veterans coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan was almost at 15%. If a veteran is unemployed, that means their spouse and their family member are also affected by that. And many aspects of that timeline came a lot of goodness affiliated with a lot of the programs that you're hearing about today through Department of Labor vets, you know, Lisa and Solid and her team and Kandi Tillman. We all have different genres that we kind of work with, but military spouses is always one of the more important conversations. And I'll say this, my early work when I was working with the unions, quite frankly, was really to, you know, tap down some of those unemployment numbers to make sure that we had veterans that were getting good jobs, not just jobs with McDonald's and 3 or 4 jobs for somebody that was the head of the household. It was really a little bit different. It was really trying to find career pathways, and that was our focus. And started early on working with the unions, with employers that were contracted partners to the unions, and with the states. You know, the states are generally geographically, you're all going home to somewhere, and the states are really stakeholders and the success of what home looks like for all of you. So that was an important factor. I've stood up many programs over the years with the trucking industry, and now work as a senior advisor for the task force movement, which was a program that was kind of brought to the table via the Biden-Harris administration, touching base on the supply chain crisis, which you as spouses have all experienced. And but I want to be very specific to the region, the Pacific Coast. I've stood up a lot of programs over the years and have been partnered to some of the joining forces efforts, which was really the very first time during the Obama administration where military, industry, academia kind of came together to really find some solutions, long-term and short-term, of how we can put a dent in that unemployment number, which was almost $1 billion being paid out by Department of Defense, but then specifically looking at not only the transitioning service member, not only the veteran, but the military spouse. And we know that the challenges are different amid each group of those individuals, but they've all served at some level, they've all sacrificed. And it was really an early goal early on to not just do meetings, but to start implementing resources and structure that would really be beneficial to not only the indent of those numbers, but really to all of those communities, the spouse, the veteran, the military family, as well as that transitioning service member. I want to talk a little bit today specifically about Pacific Coast, because I do have some programs, stood up a program in Chicago in 2012, the Utility Workers Military Assistance Program. And that was really a partnership between the state of Illinois, the major utility company in Chicago, as well as community colleges, and the state of Illinois, who was funding the tuition for that. That program has trained and placed over 1,000 veterans, all cohorts for just veterans. All new hires in the city of Chicago with People's Gas are just veterans. We've got 1,000 veterans sitting in positions as utility workers in Chicago. And since we launched that program, utility companies under the umbrella of the Utility Workers Union of America have launched this in other states, inclusive to Southern California Gas. Very specifically, this year we're launching our second round of leak technician positions, and that is wide open not only to transitioning service members and veterans, but also to military spouses. It's a rather easy transition. It's not a long apprenticeship program. The pay scales are phenomenal. Southern California Gas is the company. And if anybody needs more information, I'm happy to share that. Our first cohort for that program with Southern California Gas starts in late February, but it's going to go all the way through November of next year. It's a 15-day training. It's not extensive. A lot of it becomes that on-the-job experience, but anybody qualifies for it, whether you're a spouse or you're a transitioning service member, if you're going through the Skill Bridge program. The wages and benefits are phenomenal, and I'd certainly like to share more of that. I'll send the link for that to Lindsay. I also have another program that we're doing overall, globally, nationally, with the Teamsters Military Assistance Program and ABF Freight. And I know that trucking is probably part of the big need right now. Supply chain crisis is everything that you and your families have seen, but definitely want to make sure that we're impacting and making sure that you have those opportunities, which are, again, the high scale pay, the benefits and the rewards that come from working with good companies. And I'll say this just on a note that what Lindsay and Ed have done is they brought in a team of people. To me, it's challenging when we talk about, and as many of you know as spouses, the programs that you're eligible for amid the Coast Guard relationship. It can be challenging sometimes, but I promise you, every program that each one of us has talked about is inclusive to military spouses. Those remote jobs, task force movement, the program that I talked about early on, we're working with cybersecurity partners, both academic as well as employers. We're working with the aviation community, really easy transitional jobs that take you to the job and not necessarily to that long-term training space. But then you have the opportunity to move forward and continue your education to get those degrees. Many of the candidates, as I talk about that Chicago program, many of the candidates that came into that program, it was a 6-month training to placement. 4 months of it was guest worker training. 2 months of it was academic. And many of those candidates, those 1,000 candidates, continued their education and got their degrees, but also had a job in the process of. And the job is super important to sustain your family health and well-being. And that's something that I personally will say I'm focused on. Our teams are focused on. Public-private partnerships mean something. They're critically important to your success. And at the end of the day, the end user, which is you, the person that's going to hire you, it comes before the training. We have to have that mapped out early on. And that's something that we're really focused on, not only with the task force movement effort, but with a lot of the unions and a lot of the other programs that we stood up. So, there's many employers, there's many partners. Kandi Tillman will talk a little bit about the partners from 50 Strong and how she's created this wonderful space where you as a spouse or your transitioning service member or veteran can come in and talk directly with those employers. We all have resources. And to me, resources are everything, and making sure that you as spouses get there in a timely manner. Time is everything. It's so critical. And really what we've all tried to develop at some level is the means and affordability for you to get there sooner rather than later, but also to advance those efforts, whether it's through a degree in education, giving you the tools to get there first and get that job and do the continued education as desired or needed is critically important. So, again, I'll share with Lindsay and with Ed some of the links to the programs on the Pacific Coast specifically And I'm happy to engage with anybody that wants to further, advance the dialogue. And I will say this, as you all know, because your spouses, DOD falls into one space, Coast Guard falls into another space. DOL VETs is really doing some great things with spouses, and pay attention to some of that. Some of it is really just for you, those trusted resources, right? We know that there's a million organizations out there trying to promote. At some level, you are, the person that's taken advantage of at some level because there's so much out there and you just don't know which way to turn. And lean on some of the folks in this group. Even if it's not in the realm of what your focus is, we will find a way to support and to give you resources. And that's really what Ed and his team have done in this particular space. And, I look forward to working with you guys. I do want to say one thing, Ed, kind of exciting. I have, under the umbrella of Task Force Movement, we did 30 scholarships for CDL scholarships with Bucks Community College in Pennsylvania. And we're now launching another 50 scholarships for spouses in the cybersecurity community. And we'll be putting more information about that in the next couple days. But we really want to draw focus on some of what the Coast Guard spouses' needs and desires are. So excited to share that tonight.
Thank you, Liz. I could spend an hour unpacking what you just said in 11 minutes because it's difficult to get your mind around. We talk about standing programs up, what that actually means.
Yeah.
I know because I know this group, but for a lot of folks on the phone, they're not going to know. But we're going to help, before I leave the Coast Guard, we're going to help people get their mind around what that means so they can figure out how they play. So when you, for the Coast Guard folks on the phone and spouses, you think we have these systems Department of Labor puts out at the federal level. Liz mentioned a lot of stuff at the state level. The states are super involved. We normally, because we work for feds, we don't think of that. To get a job, you have to have evidence you're qualified. Lisa and her team have just crushed it on helping people get credit for their knowledge, skills, and where they're at. Liz putting programs together, and I wrote on the side of my notebook because Kandi's about to jump on. The 4 people on the phone, if I could describe them in a single phrase, they're really master networkers. They're bringing people together because none of us have the resources to make this stuff happen, but they understand the system. They bring resources together and they do things in their space that other people can't do. And I'm going to let Kandi introduce herself and 50 Strong and how she plays in, because connecting people is part of this, and it's not, as Liz described, not easy to do because there's people out there that are just kind of making money off of it, and then other people that are just, they're making magic happen. So Kandi, if you would tell us who you are and what you've done.
Hey Ed, how are you? Hey everybody, thanks for having me. Hey, I'm also on the West Coast. I live in Phoenix, Arizona. My background is 20 years corporate. I moved into this space about 5 years ago, and it's been a joyride since then. Here's what I want to share with you, and I'm going to pull up my screen really quickly. I run 50 Strong, and 50 Strong is really about how do we
Kandi, I think you're on mute.
Kandi,
You're muted.
Did I accidentally mute myself? Is that better?
It's much better. Thank you.
And can you all see my screen?
We can.
Oh, good. Okay. All right. So we really focus on how do we bring together the right people at really strong employers, give you an opportunity to engage with them directly on the jobs and the pathways that they have open, and then we get out of the way. So we host these big virtual events. I'm showing you here the one for next Thursday. What I hope that you take away is, I don't care if you don't remember my name or 50 Strong, I don't care about that. What I want you to know is all these employers are eager to connect with military spouses. So every couple weeks we host these big virtual events. All videos are on. all roles and pathways are pre-shared, and each employer hosts their own breakout room so that you can pick which employer that you want to meet with. You can meet with all of them if you want, but it's basically an hour of fun. I know that when you see all these big corporate logos here, the way I'm going to describe it may not make sense until you've joined us once. But I had a service member recently describe 50 Strong events as it's like you're sitting around a campfire with friends. These are military talent leads at awesome companies. Almost all of them have served or they're military spouses. And they're really coming all to 50 Strong because they have all these great roles that they want to share. By the way, if you can't join us live, we record everything, and all the pathways that are pre-shared are always available on our website for folks to action on anytime. Again, I want to call out that this event is for any service member, veteran, spouse, and certainly for student veterans. Given that this is a military spouse town hall, I thought I would highlight a couple of outcomes that we've heard about specifically for military spouses. So there was an article in Insider Magazine. Cassie is a military spouse. She came to a 50 Strong event not long ago. She met with the team at John Deere. Next thing you know, she had an interview, and she is now the military coordinator for John Deere, which is a Fortune 100 company. I also wanted to share with you, Kevin Traw is Vice President of Operations at Fortune 5 United Health Group. And we had an event that featured United Health Group in September. And he highlighted a couple months later that there were 3 military spouses from that one event that were hired. So I just wanted to share with you, we're really focused on the strong jobs that employers have and helping you connect directly to them. I thought I would quickly share with you a recap of our event from January. You can see some of the same employers, some different ones. We try to mix it up and have a good variety across sectors because, again, employers across sectors are all looking for really strong military talent. That event had 700 military-affiliated job seekers that registered. You can see there that we have a lot of active duty and veterans. We have far less military spouses joining us, but my hope is that we will continue to see that grow because, again, employers are eager to see that. There were 418 unique folks that joined that meeting. 64% of them are first timers at 50 Strong. We see that a lot where people are coming. Sometimes they come back because they need multiple meetings to meet with the employers. But 98% of folks that joined that meeting said that they found out about new pathways as a direct result of that event. So I wanted to just share with you, for those of you that may be looking for work, either now or in the future, please join us anytime. I'm going to drop in the URL. That event that I showed you is on next Thursday. We also have an event on March 9th for those that are specifically interested in the skilled trades. But again, I will drop in our website, and I hope you will join us anytime.
And Kandi, these are all virtual events, right? They're all.
Yeah, we do everything virtual. So sorry, did I miss that really important point?
I just want to point that out.
These are all virtual. Yeah. Yeah, and so we have people joining from their car, people joining from the soccer field, people joining with their kids, with their babies. Like it's very much a human to human conversation, just like it is here, except all the videos are on. You can keep yours off if you want, but the employers really love to see people and answer questions.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Ed. I hope that was helpful.
It is always helpful, my friend. Excellent.
Thank you.
Before we jump over to Lindsay, I want to slow down a little bit and see Heath or anyone else on the line, if you have any questions for Lisa, Liz, or Kandi before we move on a little bit.
Hey Ed, none from me. Just tracking all. Amazing, and you and I will sync on this as how we move forward, buddy.
Yeah, I think that's going to be that's the real question, right? Because you get the information, but what do you do with it? So, yeah, Heath, me and you will be sitting down once again. Yeah. Yep. Any other questions for folks out there? And I haven't checked the chat. All righty. Because I'm going to have a whole bunch of them here in a bit. Lindsay, would you like to carry forward? And if someone needs to drop off, I understand. Yeah, Lindsay, if you want to finish going, and we'll wrap up tonight.
Right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much to our speakers. You guys have been amazing. We appreciate you guys taking time, both last night and this tonight, jumping on at 9 o'clock at your bedtime. We appreciate you a lot. The reason ForceCom wanted to do this is because in order for spouses and members to be successful, their basic needs have to be met. This is one of the first things we're taught in day one of our leadership training in the Coast Guard is the Maslow hierarchy of needs. In order for someone to meet self-actualization, their physiological safety and belonging needs have to be met in order for them to be all they can be. And so the Coast Guard has lots of programs in order to help the member meet these needs. So the first need that we're going to talk about is the housing office. So the housing office is not just there to give you a housing release. They can help you find housing, as well as if you're having a hard time finding housing, they can create a lease for you. However, you might not like the house that they're finding for you. They have a certain algorithm based on the age of your children, the sex, and the number of dependents that they have to put you in if they're creating the lease for you. But that resource is there if you need it. The work-life programs, we have tons of work-life programs within the Coast Guard. The big one while you're transitioning, whether it be PCSing or separating, you're going to be working with your transition program manager as well as your FRS, your family resource specialist. And each base has someone assigned. So you would just go to whatever base that you're PCSing to. So if you're coming to Portsmouth, they're going to be based Portsmouth, and that's where that work-life unit is going to be out of. Military One Source is an awesome resource. You can jump on there and you can put which units you're transferring to and from, and it will give you an in-depth checklist based on that area, as well as your transition relocation manager. We're going to go a little bit in depth about what they can do and how they can assist you. So how they can assist you and your spouse is they can help you find some jobs. I know sometimes local employers will reach out to those transition relocation managers. And then they also can help you get reimbursed for any license or certificates that you may need to renew when you're moving to a new state. We see this a lot for physician assistants or teachers. You would just fill out a form once you've paid for the license or certificate, and then you would submit that to that transition manager and they would reimburse you. CGMA is a nonprofit organization, and there are many, many programs that they can help, especially when you're PCSing. The child care grant is a great one when you're trying to do your household goods. Breast milk for service members needing to ship breast milk. They recently raised their education grant from 500 to 1,000, and it does now cover computers. So just reach out to your CGMA rep. I guarantee you, if you need some kind of financial reimbursement, there's probably a program that covers it. and they're wanting to help. So just make sure you reach out to them. Fleet and Family Support. This is not a Coast Guard program. It is a Navy program, but they do accept you with open arms. Me and my spouse have used this program multiple times. PCSing to Portsmouth, we used it for employment. We went to multiple seminars, and I know when I was having my kids, I went to a lot of parenting classes through Fleet and Family in Charleston. So this is an awesome resource to have, whether you want to know something about your spouse's military career or you want to know something about the military. Go here. They're going to have a training for you. They're going to have some kind of webinar. So just make sure you utilize this resource because it's a good one. And then TRICARE and PCS. I just want to highlight this because I get a question every year on TRICARE and PCS. You do have to register yourself 90 days after you report to your new duty station. If you do not, you have to wait to your next open season in order to change it. So you will end up getting a bill if you do not register yourself. And then also, if you're going coast to coast, like West Coast to East Coast, your referrals don't move with you. So if you need a referral, as a spouse or a child, and you're not enrolled in that special needs program, you're going to need to get in with that PCM right away in order to get your referral. Most PCMs will do an urgent referral for you if you've already requested it with another PCM because you transferred. So it's more appointments, but it's something that can be done in a timely manner. And then TLE, it was just recently raised to 14 days, 7 to 14 days, depending on how many, depending on your duty location. This is something you can talk to your yeoman about. It's basically to help while you're waiting on your household goods to be transferred. So get with your yeoman, have your spouse get with your yeoman and check out that resource. All right, Master G, if you want to take it for questions.
Yeah, so I'll bounce back. Lisa and Liz are still online, and Lindsay talking about Coast Guard systems. Are there any other questions from the team tonight? Nothing heard. Excellent. So thank you very much for your support, Lisa, Liz. Always much appreciate your friendship and your help. Lindsay, thanks for putting this together. And I look forward to figuring out how to download this and get it out to the spouses that couldn't be here and the rest of the team. And thank you for staying up as late as you did. I know it's past all of our bedtimes at this point, but we love the West Coast too, so we don't want to leave them hanging. So
That's right.
much.
Thanks,
Have a
Ed.
great evening.
Thanks so much, and thanks to all the attendees. Appreciate it. We'll touch base, and take care.